My great pleasure to introduce Janette Pelosi, who is a member of the Professional Historians Association of New South Wales and ACT, and also works as a professional archivist and librarian. In addition to this, she's a Vice President and Director of the Society of Australian Genealogists, and she has a wide range of research interests from Australian colonial convict history to 19th century theatre to World War I nurses. In 2008, she was the winner of the Ron Rathbone Local History Prize for her history of the Rockdale Volunteer Fire Brigade. And she's also a local and a resident of the St George district. So I'd now like to hand over to Janette and say thank you and welcome. Janette will be sharing her screen with us. And Janette, I can see that now, so that seems to be working.
Great, thank you. Can all hear me, I hope?
Yes, I can hear you, so hopefully everyone else can too.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you, Alison, for inviting me to speak today on fire brigades in the Bayside area. I'll start with government fire brigades in general and outline some key events for the Rockdale Volunteer Fire Brigade and other fire brigades in the local area. I will mostly cover the period from the 1880s to around 1902, when the Rockdale Brigade was replaced by paid staff. I'm just having trouble. That's right. Okay. So prior to 1884, there was no government coordination of fire brigades, though there were some volunteer and insurance companies formed in that period. In 1884, the Fire Brigades Board was established. At first, it was only in charge of the Sydney Fire District, but gradually its responsibilities extended across the state. In 1910, the Board of Fire Commissioners replaced the earlier board, and it too was replaced in 1990 by New South Wales Fire Brigades. In 2011, its name was changed to New South Wales Fire and Rescue to better reflect the nature of its work. The West Botany Municipal District was proclaimed in 1871. Its name was changed to Rockdale Municipality from 1888. In the late 1880s, the need for a Rockdale Brigade was demonstrated by fires. Rockdale was not part of the Sydney Fire District. On the 6th of May 1887, the stables adjoining Wickham House, Colgrove Road, West Botany, caught fire. The hayloft was destroyed, including about 3.5 tonnes of straw. Although West Botany was not within the Metropolitan Fire boundaries, the Metropolitan Fire Brigade's boundary, the fire was attended by the Newtown Volunteer Company, assisted by the Metropolitan Fire Brigade with a manual engine. An event which must have been a catalyst for the creation of the Rockdale Brigade occurred on the 5th of December of 1889. At 12:45 a.m, it was discovered that the Masonic Hall, Bay Street, Rockdale, was alight. The building of 3 floors, consisting of 2 shops, hall and offices, was burnt out and partly fallen down. One of the shops was occupied by W. Semple, grocer, whose stock and furniture were damaged by removal. The Newtown Volunteer Company attended the blaze with standpipes. The Masonic Hall building was insured for £1,600 and its contents for $300. Unfortunately for Mr. Semple, he had no insurance. The earliest mention of the Rockdale Volunteer Fire Brigade is found in the minutes of Rockdale Municipal Council meeting held on the 28th of August of 1890. In August 1890, the Secretary of the St George's Fire Brigade wrote to the council, asking for the use of a piece of land at the rear of the town hall upon which to erect a fire station. On the motion of Alderman Judd and Cook, the request referred to the Works Committee. This indicates that the St George's Fire Brigade had been formed before the 28th of August 1890. It should be noted that the Rockdale Volunteer Fire Brigade and the St George's Fire Brigade or Company are used interchangeably in official sources. The first fire station was at the rear of the town hall. In 1890, 2 fires were attended by the Rockdale Brigade. The brigade had canvassed the local community for donations and were proud to obtain their own 5-inch manual engine drawn by 1 horse. A major event for the Rockdale Brigade occurred on the 24th of September in 1890, when Governor Lord Carrington and Lady Carrington visited Rockdale and Brighton. The Vice-Regal party, which had arrived at the Rockdale train station, then took a special tram to the grounds of Thomas Sawell's Hotel at Brighton, where Lady Carrington had previously arranged to perform the dual ceremonies of opening the flower show and christening their engine belonging to the newly formed local volunteer fire brigade. Lady Carrington christened the fire engine Mai, after the Christian name given to Lady Carrington's youngest child, the name signifying in Aboriginal language native born. This name was accorded at the special request of the fire brigade, to which her ladyship acceded. The event was attended by fire brigades from Newtown, Waverley, Paddington Brewery, Darlington and the Standard Brewery, with their engines fully equipped. The newspaper account also includes the first mention of the names of members of the St George's Volunteer Fire Company, including the Captain G. Judd, the Honorary Secretary George Tuckwell, who had already corresponded with the council, and the Honorary Treasurer Alfred Arnold. George Tuckwell was well known to the council as he was employed as one of its overseers of works. You can see in the picture here the Des Moines Fire Brigade's manual engine, which would have been similar to Rockdale Brigade's Mai. In November 1890, London banks were no longer making loans to Australia, and from 1891 the Australian colonies were in an economic depression. In February 1892, there was a run on the Savings Bank of New South Wales by depositors, and there was much unemployment in the following years. On the 6th of April 1891, St George Volunteer Fire Brigade had written to the Fire Brigade's board to request an extension of the telephone line to Rockdale Town Hall. Rockdale Volunteer Fire Brigade was not registered with the Fire Brigade's board, so the Fire Brigade's board was unable to assist. In 1892, Council under Mayor William Taylor met 3 times to consider whether to register under the Fire Brigades Act, but the council decided not to proceed due to the state of its own finances in this depressed period. In 1893, Mr. C.F. Kinsella, a local undertaker, urged the council to get a telephone exchange built at Rockdale, as this would reduce the costs for local businesses such as his, but the council could not support the expense. Alderman William Taylor of Rockdale, who can be seen to the left of this photo, supported the Rockdale Company to set up their fire station near the town hall. William Taylor served on the Fire Brigade's board and later on the Board of Fire Commissioners from 20th of March of 1894 until his death in 1922. On the 2nd of February of 1894, the provisions of the Fire Brigades Act of 1884 were extended to Hurstville and Rockdale, and each council's contributions were to start from 1895. The contributions were based on the assessed annual value of property in the municipality. Rockdale wrote to the Colonial Secretary to protest at the imposition on the council. The contributions, however, meant that the Fire Brigade was eligible for subsidies from the Fire Brigade's board. There were 15 men on the Rockdale Volunteer Company's roll at this time. Let's just go back. Registration meant abiding by the rules and regulations of the Fire Brigade's board. They specified that no member should be under the age of 21 nor over the age of 32 unless previously engaged as an active fireman. No licensed victualler was to be allowed to remain or be admitted as a member. Every company was to send a roll of its members to the board. The working strength of the company was to be not less than 15 men and not more than 40 active members. Drunkenness, insubordination, smoking in uniform and other unseemly conduct was not to be tolerated. On Saturday, the 2nd of June of 1894 at 4 p.m, a fire was discovered at Kempton Street in Rockdale in the brick dwelling with an iron roof of John Graham. The cause of the blaze was tar boiling over. The back kitchen on the ground floor and its contents were severely damaged by fire and water. The hall and contents of the back room of the same floor were damaged by water. The flames were extinguished by the household and neighbours using buckets of water. Sadly, James Graham, aged 5 years, was severely burned about his body. He later died as a result of the fire. His father, John Graham, aged 35 years, was severely burned about the hands, arms and head and was attended to at Prince Alfred Hospital, Camperdown. On the 9th of February of 1895, Rockdale obtained a hose reel, and by April so did Cogra. On the 24th of January 1895, the St George's Volunteer Fire Brigade wrote, inviting council's attendance at the christening of their hose reel on Saturday, the 9th of February at 4:30 p.m. The ceremony to be performed by Mrs Taylor, Mayoress of Rockdale. A fancy dress football match followed the event. While this photograph here is from the Wollongong Fire Brigade, it shows how the hose reel was operated. It was drawn by 2 firemen, so they had to be very fit. This is the reason why many early fire stations were located at the top of a hill. It made it easier to get a good running start. Rockdale, being quite a hilly area, would have made it hard work. Superintendent William Bear was the head of the Fire Brigade's board staff and liaised with all the local fire brigades. 5 fires were attended by Rockdale in 1895. On Saturday, the 9th of November 1895, a fire was discovered at Herman Street, Rockdale, in the home of George Leader. No call was received, but the Cogra and Rockdale volunteer fire companies both attended with 1 hydrant. The weatherboard house of 6 rooms with contents was burned out and the iron roof was partly off. The cause was unknown. The contents were insured for £60 and the building for £40. In 1895, the Rockdale Volunteer Company had a full range of equipment, including 1 horse, 2 scaling ladders, 1 hose reel, 2 hand pumps, along with hoses and nozzles. Superintendent Bear inspected Rockdale, advising the need for new hoses. A grant was received in 1896 for a new fire station to be built at Rockdale, and land was purchased and plans prepared. Rockdale Fire Station was opened in June of 1897. This station was located on Rocky Point Road, now Princes Highway, about 10 frontages down south of Bay Street. You can see some of the features of the fire station, such as the lamp with the word fire on it outside, the engine bay on the left, the accommodation upstairs, and the fire alarm next to the doorway. What you can't see is the paddock next door for the horse. In the engine bay can be seen the harness for the horses. There are stories at many fire stations that the horse would step forward as soon as the alarm was sounded, ready for the harness to be lowered. We only know the names of 2 of the Rockdale horses, Warrior and Rose. In 1897, Rockdale Fire Brigade was finally connected to the telephone line, which had been built from Newtown to Rockdale and then on to Cogra. Early fire alarms included a battery and sent a telegraphic message to a central station, which then alerted the local brigades. This was the time when almost no one had their own telephone. Each alarm's location was known, so time was saved in knowing where to send the brigade to the fire. On the 24th of March of 1897, a fire alarm on the corner of Botany Road and Bay Street was knocked over when a horse ran away and into the alarm, which had to be then repaired. In 1897, a volunteer company was formed at Hurstville and would soon be linked to Rockdale and Cogra Fire Station by telephone, and more alarms would be installed in key locations. I was delighted to find among Superintendent Bear's papers this 1897 memorandum from the Rockdale Volunteer Fire Brigade. You can see the fireman in the middle with his hose ready to put out the flames with several manual engines pumping away, while the men in their top hats look on. It is quite an exciting scene, and I think it shows the pride that the Rockdale Volunteer Fire Brigade had in their work. Here we can see some of the brigade's officers. Note their metal helmets, the scaling ladder, the standpipe in the middle there, along with the men in their clean uniforms with their shiny buttons and their long boots. Cogra Municipal Council wrote to the Fire Brigade's board on the 6th of December 1893 that it had obtained the names of 18 persons who have enrolled themselves into a volunteer fire brigade and requested the necessary apparatus and an instructor to drill the men be supplied. On the 20th of December 1893, Superintendent Bear recommended that the hose reel at number 3 station, which was at Circular Quay, be sent, and that he be allowed to order 600 foot of hose, the new station. And the board agreed, subject to proper housing being provided for the apparatus. A weatherboard station was the first one built at Cogra, and it was then replaced by the present station, which is in the picture. And it's located on Grey Street at the corner of Kensington Street. Superintendent Alfred Webb replaced Superintendent Bear in September of 1898. He had been Bear's deputy since 1888. On Friday, the 19th of May 1899 at 11:47 p.m, a fire occurred in the premises of Sun Li Hua, poultry farmer of Moore Street, Rockdale. The Rockdale and Cogra volunteer fire companies attended with one hydrant. A quantity of shingling and a portion of fencing was destroyed by fire in the yard adjoining the premises. The contents were uninsured, and it is not known whether the weatherboard building with an iron roof was insured. On the morning of Thursday, the 23rd of March of 1899, a passing steam train set fire to the grass on the railway siding near Cunningham's Paddock, Rockdale. It nearly caused a serious outbreak as a very strong wind was blowing at the time. The flames spread dangerously close to the tenements in the paddock. Fireman George Cheetham of the Rockdale Brigade prevented the flames from spreading. Some railway officials and fettlers joined him with buckets of water and other appliances. Together they succeeded in stamping out the fire. If it had reached the tenements, they would not have been saved. Here we see the men of the Cogra Volunteer Fire Brigade. The men generally are not wearing fire brigade uniforms. The subsidy provided by the Fire Brigade's board did not always stretch far enough to enable new uniforms to be purchased. On the 4th of June of 1898, William Logan, Secretary of the Rockdale Volunteer Fire Brigade, wrote requesting the board provide £30 to purchase uniforms for the members. He continued, "I might point out to you that the uniform now worn by the members was purchased 7 years ago and is now in a most disgraceful state, being torn with working at different fires. I assure you that it does not sound very well for the general public to criticise us as dirty-looking firemen through the faulty look in which our uniform has now attained. In fact, some of our members have not got uniforms to wear, and any new member coming into the brigade at once sees for himself that we have not got uniforms and at once leaves, as I feel sure that no man will spoil his own clothes, as the majority of the members are working men and could not possibly sustain the loss." The request for £30 was refused, as the yearly subsidy to the company had been raised by £20. Hurstville Fire Station is shown here at its opening on Anniversary Day, the 26th of January of 1898. Hurstville Volunteer Brigade had been formed by June of 1897. Rockdale was invited to the celebration and participated in a friendly game of cricket. Hurstville won by 48 runs. Cogra had a one-horse hose carriage, and Hurstville was to have either an engine or a coast carriage. At 12:15 a.m. on Wednesday, the 22nd of February 1899, an alarm was raised at a cottage in Kimberley Road. Hurstville was on fire. Hurstville Fire Brigade turned out, but were unable to save the weatherboard cottage, but did save the adjoining property. Mr. A. Dye, a well-known cricket bat manufacturer, lost about 200 bats stored on the premises and all his machinery, but he was insured. The St George Observer newspaper enthused, "Too much praise cannot be given to the Hurstville firemen for the way they worked to save the premises. It was the first fire the Hurstville firemen had battled with by themselves." The St George's Advocate reported that the larger manual from Rockdale arrived shortly after the Hurstville Brigade and found that Hurstville had all available hose out, so they simply stood by to render any necessary aid. The Observer more pointedly stated that the Rockdale Fire Brigade turned up when the fire was out. You can see the men of the Hurstville Volunteer Fire Brigade here. Note their helmets and uniforms and their neatly rolled hoses, the standpipes and their axes. On Friday, the 28th of June, 1898, Charles Munford's brick home with a slate roof at Mill Street, Hurstville, caught fire, being discovered at 2:50 p.m, and the alarm was received at 2:54. It was recorded that rats at matches was the cause. The Rockdale Volunteer Fire Company attended and extinguished the fire with a private hose. Lumber and the bathroom at the rear of the dwelling were damaged by fire and water. While the contents were uninsured, the building was insured for £3,000. No doubt it must have been an impressive home. We can see the officers of the Rockdale District Fire Brigade posed in the engine bay, displaying their ladders, standpipes and clean uniforms. One of the young men may be Russell, who lived at the station with his wife, and it is possible that the man with the beard seated on the right may have been Charles Royal. Thomas Saywell of Brighton Hotel and Saywell's Tram was the patron of the Rockdale Fire Brigade Band at the Brighton Hotel. The band began in February of 1899 with a class for beginners held in the billiard room of the Rockdale Fire Station. J.C. Walker was the bandmaster. There was no official connection with the fire brigade, though some musicians, including William Long, were also members of the fire brigade. On the 9th of August of 1901, the band held its first annual social at Thomas Saywell Brighton Hall at Lady Robinson's Beach, Brighton. The principal item was a comic military band sketch, which created uproarious laughter. I'm going to end that. The story for the volunteer company really ends in 1902 when the Fire Brigades Board actually paid for the staff to attend at the station. We're going to move on now to the various fire brigades and fire stations in both the Bayside and Georges River area. I won't read all of this, but just quickly, you can see the order that the various stations were established. So we have Rockdale in 1890, Cogra following in 1895, Hurstville in 1897, Bexley in 1905. It had a separate council area in that time. North Botany Station was established in 1904 as a volunteer company. Botany in 1905. Mortdale followed in 1908. And the original Arncliffe station was established in 1909. And the most recent station there is actually Riverwood. And you can see that the station number for Riverwood is the same as the station number for the original Bexley station. I have a few photos to show you now of the various stations. So this one here is the next Rockdale Fire Brigade station, and it's actually around the corner in Bay Street, 41 Bay Street at Rockdale, and it eventually became, I think it was Crippled Children building after it stopped being used by the Fire Brigade in 2006. And here's the modern Arncliffe Fire Station, which were the successors of the original Rockdale Company. Here we have the earlier Arncliffe Fire Brigade, which was established in 1909, and they're showing off their fire engine there in 1910. And here's their station. Their station is on the corner of, or was on the corner of Farrer Street and Forest Road, and it was closed in 1945. A lot of stations around Sydney were actually closed in 1945 because horses had been replaced by motor fire engines, which were unable to cover greater distances than the horses could. Therefore, fewer stations were needed. Here we have the Hurstville Fire Station from 1912 in McMahon Street, probably familiar to many of you. It's now, I think, a doctor's surgery. This is the second site that was used, and a new one was brought in 1993, which is located in Ormond Parade in Hurstville. Here we have the Mascot Fire Station in Coward Street. Mascot actually started off as North Botany. It was established in 1904 and was renamed in 1912 as Mascot and became station number 26. Here we have the Botany Fire Station in Banksia Street. And a voluntary company had been established there in 1905, and it became station number 35, and its first permanent staff were appointed in 1912. Here's the Mortdale Fire Brigade in 1920. Mortdale, you can see here, had an engine that was drawn by 2 horses. The paddock for the horses was next door to the station, and the land there was later sold to become the Commonwealth Bank in Mortdale. Here we can see that station today. An interesting part of this is that originally the Weatherboard building that was at Cochrane Station was actually dismantled and moved to Mortdale to become its first station, and it was then subsequently in 1912 replaced by the station that you can see now. And I just thought I'd end with the current fire and rescue of today. You can see here, this is the Hurstville Fire Brigade, station number 20, and I've put up a few links there. There's the fire and rescue website. New South Wales State Archives holds a lot of information on history of fire brigades, and also there's the Museum of Fire at Penrith. At that point, I think I will hand back now to Alison for question time. Thank you all for listening.